everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Focusing Podcast, where we discuss photography and technology. And I'm your host, Ethan. I would like to wish everyone a happy new year. I was spending time with family and friends, and it was really great. And I hope you had a great time as well. But today, we're back at it. In today's topic, we're discussing who I think reigns supreme in the camera world. Is it Canon, Nikon, or Sony? Keep listening to find out. So, Canon. I've had a interesting experience with Canon cameras, for good or for good or for worse. So, the very first Canon camera I used was the T7 Rebel, and that camera, it felt in a weird way a downgrade from the D5600 that I have, and that isn't bad. It just feels a little bit more compact, and it's like way smaller, and then it feels like a light version or a demo version of compared to what I expected from Canon. And at the time, that was 2 years ago, I didn't expect that much from Canon until I used the EOS 90D. Just the feel of that camera, you really feel like the power behind that camera because it's like nothing else. The T7 has a 24.1 megapixel CMOS sensor, and it has an ISO range of 100 to 6400. It also has a 9-point autofocus system and an AI servo AF with a 3-inch LCD. And that's kind of what I mean when I say it feels a bit basic. And in a way, I think that's its whole design language with the T7. It's basic, and that's what it's meant to be. Now, in terms of pictures, you can still get some pretty good stuff out of it. But with the EOS 90D, that feels like a more upgraded version of the T7 Rebel, a Rebel T7. I don't know if I think it's, Rebel T7. I had to check my notes real quick. But I definitely do think that the EOS 90D, it's worth it, really. The specs on that, it boasts a 32.5 megapixel CMOS sensor, a high-speed continuous shooting up to 10 frames per second with no lag time, 4K Ultra HD 30 FPS recording, 220,000 pixel AE sensor, and a dual pixel CMOS autofocus. This camera is from 4 years ago, and that sounds beefy enough to me. That camera is really beefy. And the thing I like is the mini LCD on the top. And in all honesty, I don't really find myself using it. I can see use cases of me using it, but I wouldn't consider using it. But that's just me, though. Many people may find that, may be able to use that. I tend to just look into my camera and look into the viewfinder and just see my settings there. But the EOS 70D or 90D, sorry, is really, in my opinion, like, I think it's worth it if you ask me. It's really worth it. It's really good, and it takes really good pictures. And when I first started out with the Rebel T7, I think that if I had the skills that I have now and I were able to still use that EOS 90D, I think my photography will be taken to the next level. But my philosophy is that it's not the camera, it's the photographer. In most cases, because that can apply to a lot of, not that it can apply to a lot of things, but it can, that it's iffy to say that. Let's just say that. Now, on to Nikon. So, what's the holdup now? Now, I don't think Nikon is bad. I grew up on Nikon, and Nikon's even my first ever camera. If you don't know already, my main camera is a Nikon D5600. Many critics say it's a good entry as a DSLR camera, and I can wholeheartedly agree. It was my first DSLR camera and still holds it today. For 2 years, it has been a smooth sailing experience and a wonderful one at that. There have been articles a year prior that discussed that Nikon would stop making the D5600s and the cameras in that line. Now, in all honesty, this was to be expected. Mirrorless cameras have been on the rise for years now, and Nikon's flagship camera is the Z9, and it is a total monster looking at a spec sheet. It has a 45.7 million pixel sensor, 35.9 millimeters by 23.9 millimeter sensor, an ISO sensitivity of 64 all the way up to 25,600, and it can shoot up to 8K. I can see why Nikon is really pushing the Z series as a flagship camera. I think I speak for everyone here, but my only concern is that hefty $5,000, $500 price tag. It's a bit too high for my liking, or anyone's for that matter. And I think it creates a really high barrier to entry with this model. The specs should prove wonderful considering this price tag. I think Canon has an advantage here since it's still powerful and at an affordable price tag. But can Sony take the crown? Sony has been on a victory lap with the Alpha series. It holds up so well as contenders to its contenders, and everyone and their dog has an Alpha 7 III, and I can see why. Sony is known for having a really good color science. To break it down, Sony is good at making colors pop, and a really small camera body. What attracted me to the Alpha 7 III was the body itself. It has a black body with a metallic orange rim where you put the lens, and it looks so cool. This camera came out 5 years ago and is still being used today. That is a testament to how great of a camera this is. This camera has an ISO sensitivity of 100 to 51,200. It's 4K video and 24.2 megapixels up to 10 frames per second. Sorry. Compared to the Z9 and EOS 90D, it doesn't hold a candle to its competitors, but it is still a mighty camera that can handle its own and shouldn't be scoffed at. Sony sensors are so good that they even put them into iPhones. You can thank Sony for that, Apple fans. While I may have never used a Sony camera, I will definitely make the investment. I've seen beautiful pictures come out of all these cameras, and when I see a vibrant, colorful picture, I know it has to be a Sony. Its small body is an advantage since it makes it more portable. Also, I can admit I have a bias for Japanese manufacturers. So, overall, Sony, Nikon, and Canon have all been on top of their game for years now. I give them all applause to the cameras and works of arts they've created. However, I think that Sony takes this one. They have a really good price, and the EOS 90D comes really close since it only costs $1,200, which is actually less than the Alpha 7 III. I think it's because I have a soft spot for Sony cameras and want one really bad. But let me know what you think in the Q&A section. Make sure to follow my page on Twitter or X and Instagram. I post my photography there bi-weekly, so please support me. Also, don't forget to share the podcast with family and friends so we can have a greater outreach. Until next time, focus in.